Yeah, just an observation of like, you read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and like these kids, like, yeah, he eats the chocolate that the witch gives him or the candy or whatever, but like he's not a horrible. I mean, he is a horrible person, but like he's a jerk and he's like entitled. And I the character names are, I know Lucy, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yep. Edmund.
Yeah, and like but it's not like Aslan's like, well, you did this, so now I have to die. He's like, the witch got to you, and to save you, I'm going to give myself in your stead. Like, it's not necessarily like an evening of the scales like penal substitutionary atonement is, where like you're sitting before a judge and he's like, well, you owe $1 bajillion, and you're like, I don't have $1 bajillion. Yep. And Jesus is like, let me bring out my wallet. Aslan's much more like there's a deeper magic that she's unaware of. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to break this curse.
Hi, Bad.
Yes, you can play a game in a second. And I think that story I still find beautiful. And I don't know if you could hear, like, I get a little verklempt even talking about it, because I think there is a beauty in this idea of like sacrifice for others, even though we talked about how I think the idea of like fully emptying yourself, or like Rachel's book, where like just define yourself this way and give all you can till you're depleted.
Yeah.
And that's how you find who you are. Like, I think those are dangerous, but there is like this beauty in the narrative of God, the rescuer, of like God is Aslan, or Aslan is God. That is like, he's like, I love you so much, I'm going to do this for you.
I think what's shifted for me a little bit is looking at Jesus as like the guy who took a bullet for me, instead of looking at him as the guy who took a bullet for me. I look at him who the guy who is offering me an invitation to live life the way that he did, if I want to, and that's a pursuit that makes life worth living, and then nothing else quite fulfills. You can have the best day ever. Our podcast could blow up and get 1 million listeners today, and then you still go to bed and you go, I'm going to die, right? Like, what's it all for? And What does it mean? And there's this emptiness that's there. Whereas I think Christ is offering us actual fulfillment in calling us to be like himself. I think that's the offer of his death, rather than, because in order to be moved by having a bullet taken for you, you actually have to spend your entire life thinking that you're totally depraved. In order for that version of the gospel to be moving, it's only moving at that moment you're like, oh gosh, I'm so terrible, and I'm so relieved that Jesus loved me anyway. I just find that, and I think you would agree, I just find that to be a toxic self-view.
Yeah.
Where, as opposed to, here's a better version of me, and I know I'm not there, but Jesus did it, and through faith gives me the Spirit to have the potential to do it too, and that life is actually fulfilling, even though it's scary. That's the gospel to me. Not, I've sinned, I'm terrible, I'm a wretch, I'm horrible, and for some reason Jesus loved me anyway. Doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if people are honest, being a parent really, like, I doubt the veracity of some Calvinists or evangelicals' belief in total depravity once they have kids.
I totally get what you're saying.
Because, like, you look at your, like Bash is on the couch right now, and he's being a little whatever. I mean, like, he's not bad, but, like, there's nothing he could do that would make me be like, yep, like, you should have eternal conscious torment, or, like,
right.
like, there's nothing he could do to me, right? And so partially, like, this idea of penal substitutionary atonement is, like, you hurt God so bad, right? Because, like, who are you sinning? Like, what? Like, in penal substitution, like, you sin against God. So, like, you hurt him so bad that you deserve punishment for it. And your punishment is he's going to torture you forever unless you accept the sacrifice that he made on your behalf.
No, unless he chooses you to accept the
sacrifice. Right. Well, yeah. So there's this meme of Jesus, like, there's that famous painting of, like, Jesus knocking on the door, right? And there's an atheist meme where it's like, he's knocking on the door, is like, who is it? Jesus. What do you want? To save you. From what? What I'm going to do to you if you don't let me in.
Right.
And like you look at your kids and you're like, what could they do to me that would make me beat them until they died? And like in history, there have been parents who've done that. And I think is like, but like I think most parents look at their kid and they're like, there's nothing you could do that would make me.
Yeah, right. I mean, no, I'd have to think of like the wildest example.
I mean, even like,
if you hurt my wife,
I was gonna say if your kid murdered your wife, but like,
right.
You know, like you're probably getting it too. Right. like there, you know, it's like a Lizzie Borden situation.
The point is, if you have to go to that example, if you have to go that far, well, maybe if you murdered my wife, and then it's still a maybe, like that means that most of us are more patient than the God of Calvinism. Yeah, which you know, unless watching porn is to God the equivalent of your son murdering your wife,
right? And I think there are Christians who would say it is. And then there's atheists who are like, well, that's just silly. And I think there's probably, that's silly, buddy. Do you have any last thoughts? Because I think this guy's getting a little rambunctious. And
I don't. I appreciate you giving me the time to lay that out. And I'm appreciative of grateful for your feedback because it allowed me to expand.
Yeah. So I think this might be the podcast we get the most comments on. You thought it was going to be the COVID masks.
Yeah.
We got 0 comments on it. So either people didn't want to engage, or they're like, yeah, wearing a mask while you're biking outside is silly.
Yeah. Or I don't have a gauge in the zeitgeist of our culture at all. I'm way too introverted for that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for Mocha Joe's. It was delicious. I drank my coffee way faster than you. Do you have anything you want to say to our listeners, bud? No, now you're going to go quiet? We appreciate you. I hope my toddler wasn't too distracting. Thanks for sharing, Matt. I think we'll get more into the beauty of your worldview as we go on, clearly. And I think maybe you should repost your Facebook post on the Not Quite Religious Facebook page itself. And just say it's from Matt so that listeners can check it out and engage with it in typed form, because not everyone is a auditory learner, or people might want to check it out.
I can also do a flannel graph illustration. I'll put it on Instagram.
What's a flannel graph?
Some listeners will get that reference. I probably less than I think. Flannel graph was a common Sunday school way of teaching Bible stories.
Yeah, that was before my time, but I think that's like where you have the felt or whatever, and you stick it on, and like they just stick magically, not magically, but because it's like Velcro.
Yeah, like introducing Daniel. And then you had like a lion figure and.
Yeah, when we had my church, we were more into like technology and
I was.
I guess that is a technology of sorts. It's just like 17th century technology.
I was Sunday schooled in the 90s by people who grew up in the 50s.
Yeah, right, and probably had the same art supplies. Lying in that church basement. Yeah. Well, I think with that, flannel graph on Instagram, look for it, wait for it.
Maybe.
I think we should hold Matt to it at this point. Maybe Rachel can do it as part of her identity as being mom. Sorry, Rachel.
Rachel, you are more than a mother.
That was a joke. Like, comment. We appreciate those of you who have. Our email is nqreligious@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And I think with that, have a great week.